You're live now.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Google Study Huddle AdWords Search Hangout. This is the session where we're going to go through the advanced search module and hopefully get everybody ready and able to pass the advanced search exam. I imagine, like me, many of you will have probably cut your teeth on AdWords as the sort of the AdWords search is the first introduction to AdWords. And if that's the case, I hope you'll find this exam not too hard. If you've come from more of a display or a video background, this may contain some things that you'll need to work hard on, but I hope you've all been studying in advance and that after the exam you'll all make at least an attempt to pass the exam, because hopefully you'll have everything fresh in your mind after just now. So we're going to start today talking with we'll go through the table of contents. We're going to go through the search advertising overview. We're then going to talk about search ad campaign creation. We'll then move on to showing your ads and determining bids. And lastly, we'll talk about how to measure performance and optimize. What I would say is that in this exam, Google's got quite a lot of emphasis on other ad formats. So obviously there's quite a lot of emphasis on regular search on desktop Google, but because mobile is becoming more and more mainstream, there's quite a lot of content about mobile, there's quite a lot of content about video in this exam. So do remember that this is search across all devices and all platforms. So don't just think of it only as text ads on Google's desktop search. Just to introduce myself before we go any further, my name's Lucy Johnson and I used to work at Google a few years ago now over in Dublin, working on AdWords itself. I started off in the UK AdWords support team and then went on to work in the Italian team and then the YouTube team. I now run a very small agency and I'm here under the auspices of another agency called AdWords. Let's talk about search advertising and the overview a little bit more. Sorry, one last thing to say is that you're able to ask questions by going to the Hangout window and typing your questions in the box. And if you ask the questions by typing them there, I'll then come back and I'll keep checking it and just see if there's anything that I need to address as we go along. So let's talk a little bit about consumer behavior and the impact of search. Google's finding that search is becoming even more important as more people are on the go, more people are out and about, and search is becoming fundamental to everything we do during the day. We no longer go online, we live online is what Google would have us believe, and for me certainly it's true. I imagine it is for many of you as well. We're all constantly seeking new kinds of information, from deals to trivia to what's going on in the news, and all of this is, for many of us, we access this through search. According to Google, there are over 100 billion Google searches every month. So it's a huge number of searches. And for almost any company, any business trying to market themselves, appearing on Google when someone searches for something relevant to them is pretty fundamental to their business. So helping your clients to be there is one of the single biggest things you can do, whether it's through traditional Google search, whether it's through being on a map, through being there with a video. There are so many options, and using all the techniques we're going to talk about are some of the best ways that you can help your clients achieve that. So a few trends to talk about. 4 in 5 consumers want ads customized to where they are. And if you just think about yourself when you're using maybe your smartphone or something, it's really helpful if you get ads for things that are around where you're based, rather than seeing, so if you're like me and you're based in Scotland, rather than seeing ads for all the big businesses in London, it's much more useful if I can find out if something is local to me. And that's something that Google would encourage us to think about when we're making the decisions for our clients, is how do we make sure that we are reaching the right people in the right place. Half of people who conduct a local search on their phone visit a shop within the day. Now, I find this a really amazing statistic because a lot of clients I work with, we look at the AdWords campaigns, we look at how they're running. Now, a lot of them say that, oh yeah, but a lot of these maybe aren't generating business. Maybe there's, a lot of people still come into my shop. Now, if you can tell them that half of people who do a search on their phone end up visiting the actual shop within the day, it's something that could be quite interesting for them in that the people visited the search potentially because, sorry, visited the shop potentially because they did that search. So it's really important to emphasize that, and those visits to the shop may not be being tracked effectively, where if people could buy things online, we can use e-commerce tracking and check whether the sales are happening because of AdWords or because of another marketing platform. When people come into the store or the shop, it's much harder to know. So it's worth knowing that a lot of people may be coming into shops and buying, may have been driven there from a search on a phone and perhaps a click on an ad. 59% of mobile users say they find ads useful. 56% of smartphone users have done a mobile search after viewing an ad. So the one about mobile users saying they find ads useful, it's amazing how many people, when I'm teaching these courses, say, oh, but I never click on ads. And a lot of people, because Google makes the ads so relevant and they incentivize advertisers to make sure that the ads are relevant to the thing that the person has searched for, I think a lot of people don't notice that the ads are ads, and they end up clicking on them. I guess if you think about overall about ad click-through rates, it's probably sort of an average of 2 to 3 to 4% perhaps. So not everyone clicks on an ad or the top at one of our ads every time, but a lot of people do find the ads useful, especially for certain products and services. Search ads drive an average increase of 6.6 percentage points in top-of-mind awareness. So again, this is something that bigger brand advertisers for a long time said, oh, search isn't for us. No one's going to go and say, hey, I want a Coke. I'm gonna do a Google search to find me a Coke. But what they have found is that just by having ads and showing on the top of Google, people find that they trust that brand more just because it's on Google. So that's kind of a vote of confidence for the brand. So being shown on Google is important for brand advertisers as well as direct response. When asked to recall up to 5 brands unaided, brand awareness increased on average by 9.2 percentage points based on search. So there are a lot of opportunities in search that I think people miss, and it's something as marketers we need to be aware of, because otherwise our marketing work won't be understood and recognised as having the importance that it does if we're not able to explain the other ways that the other benefits that people are getting from search, not literally just sales online. Let's go in and talk a little bit more detail about creating a search ad campaign. So one of the first things to think about is making sure that you're going to create the right campaign type for you. Google fairly recently, the campaign changed, and we now, rather than just having search network and display network, and we now have search network with display select. There's also video campaigns, and we now have Google. I think Google would encourage us to go with the default option as being search network with display select for smaller customers. I tend to find I would rather, if I'm setting up campaigns for clients, I would rather have, because display objectives and search objectives are nearly always so different, I by and large pretty much always put them in separate campaigns. So I tend not to use the search network with display select all that often. Google I think would like us to more often, but it's up to you, and it's worth trying out. So the four different campaign types: search network only, display network only, search network with display select, and video. And when you're creating your campaigns, you go in and you select the campaign type is one of the first things you'll do. There are also shopping and universal app campaigns, which aren't shown here, but they're another form of advertising that we'll touch on very briefly, but I'm not going to go into them in too much detail. This next slide I talk about a lot whenever I'm talking about AdWords, and it's something that I always say it sounds very boring, but it's also very, very important. So it's how to structure an AdWords account effectively. So how you organize your campaigns really makes a difference in how effectively your AdWords account will perform. So obviously at the AdWords account level, this might be, so you might have one account per client. Some clients might need more than one account, but overall you'll end up with one account per client as a rule, and then within that account you have the option of several campaigns. Now, I think the word campaign is sometimes not a great one, because a campaign to me implies something that starts and then finishes. But actually an AdWords campaign is really just a group of ads that go together because they've got the same settings. So you might group things together because they need to have a similar budget, they'll be working out of the same budget, or because they've got the same location targeting, language targeting, whatever it is, but the campaign allows you to set a bunch of ads in a group together which will have the same targeting options. Within campaigns, you get the option of ad groups. So within this electronics store, for example, we might divide out the campaigns as being between televisions and cameras. Perhaps the profit margin on televisions is much bigger than cameras, so you might want to have a different budget set for each of these two campaigns. And then within the campaigns, you obviously have ad groups, and you can have multiple ad groups. And within the television campaigns, budget television campaign, you might want to have flat screen TVs and plasma TVs as two separate ad groups. And then within the budget cameras campaign, you might want to have digital cameras and compact cameras as two different ad groups for people who are interested in those different products. Having it set up this way means that when someone searches for a digital camera, they will see an ad targeted to them for digital cameras, and rather than seeing one for a compact camera, for example. So it allows you to match your ad to a particular keyword list. And getting the structure right before you start is one of the most important things you can do. And often when I'm taking on a new client, it's one of the first things we look at is their account often has grown organically and hasn't been much structural planning to it. And stepping back and planning out how the account should be structured is one of the best things that I can do for those clients, because they then make better marketing decisions, make better budget decisions, and the account will work better in the long run. The next thing we're going to do is look at choosing an ad format. So each ad format has, there are many ad formats. When I started at Google, there was just one. It was text ads. And I remember everyone's horror when they said we were going to bring in image ads, but luckily we've come a long way since then. So each ad format has its own benefits, and you can run multiple kinds of ads from the same AdWords account, and in some cases from the same campaign. You can see the list here. You've got text ads, image ads, app promotion ads, product listing ads, call-only ads, dynamic search ads. All of these are different options, and this table here shows you where they're all eligible to show. So, for example, you won't get image ads showing on Google itself, or you won't get product listing ads showing on the display network. Well, you can see that there's different places and format and options for different formats. The call only ad is a fairly new one, and you can see that only shows on search network only, call only. So that campaign type can only take call only ads. Some of these you may not have come across yet, but we're going to go through each of them in more detail later on. Let's look at text ads in more detail. So a text ad has got obviously a headline, a display URL, and a description. The headline is here, the display URL is in green, and the description is these two lines here. They actually look very different depending on where they're appearing. If they're in the top, often the second line gets promoted up into the headline. And Google is always experimenting with different ways of showing the ads, so you can never be quite sure how it's going to appear, but all the ads are made in the same way. Google just plays around with how they're shown. The display URL is interesting. This is a URL that's not the actual working URL of an ad. This will simply take you to it gives a user an idea of the site to which you'll be taking them. So you can use it to say for example, it was the digital cameras store from a couple of slides ago. Sorry, the electronics store from a couple of slides ago. If this was the digital cameras ad group, you might want to put www.electronicsshop.com/digital cameras, so that you're showing people you're going to take them to the digital cameras page of the website. You wouldn't want to put the obviously the actual URL that you want to send people to might be a much more longer URL with tracking IDs and things on it, but the display URL isn't actually clickable. It just gives people an idea. And one of the things that you might want to think about is if you're running mobile ads, for example, is making sure that people know that if you've got a particularly mobile, if you've got a mobile specific website, making sure that for your mobile ad you've got a display URL that reflects that it's a mobile website, so that people know that they're going to get a good experience if they click on it and come to your site. A few tips for making great text ads. So highlight what makes the company or the product unique. So variety, free shipping, the price. If your prices are distinctive, highlight the prices. If you've got any promotions or exclusives, make sure that you include those in your ad copy. Try and empower customers to take action, so including phrases like call today, order now, buy now, sign up today. Usually it helps to get people to come and click on the ad and come and see what you're offering. Include at least one of your keywords. So the words that appear up here in the top of the headline of the ad, if you can move your keyword, make sure that your keywords are in your ad copy as well, it's going to make the ad seem much more relevant to the user. And from Google's point of view, from the quality score point of view, if Google sees that keyword appears in the ad and then ideally takes that the landing page you're linking that ad to also contains that keyword or key phrase, it's going to give that ad a lift in its quality score, the keyword a lift in its quality score, and it's going to give it a much. You'll end up paying less per click than you would otherwise, and you're going to get a higher click-through rate because people, if they search for buy digital camera on Google and they see an ad that says buy digital cameras, they're much more likely to click on that ad and come to your site. Match your ad to your landing page. So as I was saying earlier, make sure that the same products and promotions that are included on the landing page and that the experience meets expectations. So this is landing page quality. Make sure that your ads are taking people to a page that's going to make it easy for people to find the product that they searched for initially, and that you're transparent with their data and so on and so forth. If you've got a mobile, if you're advertising on mobile, use call and location extensions to share your phone number and location. Create separate ads optimized towards those on mobile devices. So when you're creating a text ad, you'll notice there's a little button in your AdWords ad creation interface which says mobile preference, and you can click on that little button, and that means that Google will prefer to show that ad on mobiles if it does okay. And in that case, you want to perhaps adapt that ad to the mobile audience a little bit more, perhaps make it a bit shorter, snappier. Make sure that if you've got a mobile-specific landing page that you let people know that with a display URL, and just try and think about how people will be viewing your ad on a mobile phone versus a desktop. So making sure you're experimenting as a best practice, I usually advise test several different ads at the same time in an ad group. What Google will then do is, of course, is rotate those ads, and your ads will, the one that does the best, Google will then start showing that one more often, and you'll start to know, well, hey, saying this special offer in my ad copy is actually doing better than saying free shipping. So maybe in future ads, I will try using this special offer rather than the free shipping, because that will get more people to come to my site and the ad will do better overall. Do remember about the Google AdWords policies, editorial policies. So you can't put an exclamation mark in the headline. You can't use sort of gimmicky punctuation, so no lots of stars or all in capitals or anything that or repeating words too often. Cheap isn't going to get disapproved by Google. So try and keep the English fairly straightforward in standard wording. Abbreviations that are standardly used, I think they prefer YOU rather than U for you. And keep it concise, because you've only got a very few characters, 25 characters for the headline and 35 for each of these. Let's move on from creating ads. So just a few best practices for creating mobile ads. Mobile ads allow you to reach your customers while they're on the move. So you can get text ads, image ads, app promotion ads and HTML5 ads for mobile. You also get the mobile app ads, and again you get the option of doing text, image, video app promotion, TrueView for app promotion. All of these options are all designed for people on their mobile devices, and the beauty of people on mobile devices is that you have much more of an idea where they are. So if people are nearby your shop, target them potentially and ask them to walk in. You've got different ways of appealing to people on mobiles than you do on desktop. So don't treat those people as the same. The people on mobiles you've got advantages you can take advantage of. So don't just assume that the standard desktop ad will work as well for a mobile advertiser. For a mobile user. Now let's talk about promoting mobile apps. So this is something you maybe wouldn't have thought would appear in the search exam, but it does. So it doesn't go into a lot of detail, not nearly as much as the mobile exam itself. But promoting mobile apps gives you the option to simplify Android app promotion. Ads are created based on creative text and app details. So when you're creating one of these campaigns, it's a specific campaign type. You get the option to create an app, an app promotion ad, and those ads are very templated, so you don't get much in the way of customization. Ads are created based on creative text and app details. You get an optional YouTube link, which allows you to show YouTube ads to people. What these do really well is drive downloads of your mobile app. They're available on YouTube, the display network, and the search network. And you get the option to have standard image and video ad formats to use to do this. Essentially, what it does is get people to use your app. So it's available for the display and search network, and standard and image app engagement ads. So there's two different areas for promoting mobile apps. There's trying to get people, first of all, to install your app in the first place. But one of the big problems you'll run into then, once people have installed your app, is that getting them to come back and use it. Many apps end up never being used once they've been installed for the first time. So Google then has this option of Google app engagement ads, which allow you to target people who've already got the app installed and then encourage them to come back and use the app. That's what we're going to talk about in the next slide. So increasing mobile app engagement allows flexible bidding and targeting to those who have installed your app. Now, you may get the odd question about this. So using one of the benefits of these engagement ads for mobile apps is that you can use deep links to send users to the location in the app that is most related to their search. So an example I've used before for this is, say for example, you are Wimbledon and you're promoting the Wimbledon app. Now Wimbledon's coming up. People might be starting to Google search on Google for the fixtures for Andy Murray, for example. When's Andy Murray going to be playing, and so on and so forth. Now, because they maybe haven't used the Wimbledon app for a year, they may forget that they have actually got this app on their device. So what Wimbledon might do is use app engagement ads, so that when someone searches on Google on their phone for Andy Murray's first round match at Wimbledon, Wimbledon could use an app engagement ad to say, hey, do you know you've got an app? Here's the app on your phone. This app can give you all the information, and it could be deep linked. That ad could be deep linked to the page of the app that's going to show them when Andy Murray's fixtures are, and perhaps a little bit more information about Andy's path through Wimbledon and so on. So the deep links allow you to take people to the most relevant page of the most relevant part of the app. A bit like linking to a particular landing page in regular desktop ads. With app engagement ads, you can link right down to the most relevant content for them. So bids can be based on a CPC or a focus on conversions strategy. So you've got both of those options for these. Let's talk about adding phone numbers to ads next. So there's a lot to be said. Again, we're talking a lot about mobile, but as Google says, an awful lot of searches now, a really high percentage of searches now are done from mobiles. So we need to be thinking of mobile as mainstream rather than think of it as an add-on to desktop. So adding phone numbers to ads, particularly on mobile, makes it really easy for people to call you on the go. You can display on a mobile, you can display a clickable button like this with an ad on smartphones. They work as on a desktop. It will show the phone number. The call extension will show a phone number and allow people just to dial that from their phone manually. So they run on a CPC basis. Google's done some studies that show that using these sorts of giving call in typically increases the click-through rate of an ad by 6 to 8%. So that's quite a big increase in click-through rate, and potentially could drive a lot more people to a particular site, and they can be very, very powerful. And the great thing is that since you're bidding on a CPC basis, you only pay per click whether someone clicks on the ad to go to the site or whether they click on the phone button and make a phone call. You're still only paying the same standard cost per click as you would with any other regular ad. So you can share the phone numbers that you set up across ads or within an ad group. They drive calls to your business. You can set the numbers to show only when your business can take calls. So you can use ad scheduling to say, or even the call extension scheduling to say, only show my ads when my business phone lines are open, which can be something quite reassuring for business owners who are worried about lots of phone calls when their staff aren't in to take the calls. And this allows you to make sure that doesn't happen. You can count calls as conversions, and I do this for quite a few of my clients where if they're not e-commerce sites and phone calls really matter, this becomes very valuable for me and for them, because we start seeing how much value AdWords is adding, because we can see the phone calls that AdWords has driven. In the reporting statistics, you can see the beginning of the phone number that's being called them from, so you can get a pretty good idea, and you can perhaps even start matching those to your customer records to see which calls AdWords drove and which ones whether those were valuable calls or not. I don't know how many of you have used dynamic search ads, which is what we're going to talk about next. Dynamic search ads were brought in by Google to help advertisers with a huge inventory. So if you are, well, for example, eBay or someone with an enormous amount of inventory that's changing a lot, it's very hard for you to make an AdWords ad specifically for each piece of inventory that you've got, to make it relevant and to add the right keyword list and everything else. So what Google brought in was this sort of almost automatic ad generation. And Google's organic web crawling technology basically targets searches based on the site content. So they look at the content of your site, and you can set it up to look at particular parts of your site or which areas that you want to. So you might be some premium content of your site you want to set up ads for manually, and for other parts of your site not so manually, and the other parts of your site are not so valuable, so you don't want to spend time manually setting them up. So you might use dynamic search ads for that part of your site. So the incremental traffic fills in gaps in keywords campaigns. So, for example, if you've got keyword campaigns for most of your inventory but not all of it, or most of the product on a site, dynamic search ads can help you fill in gaps where you haven't had a chance to create a keyword campaign and to start running them. So they basically automatically create an ad for the advertiser. They crawl the site, they look for products, and then if someone does a search for a product that they see on your site, they will dynamically generate an ad and show it, and you will then potentially get clicks for that product that you're not actually specifically advertising. So some of the benefits, obviously it saves quite a lot of time. It means that your ads are frequently updated and it's done automatically. The headlines are dynamically generated and are often very relevant, and it helps you to capture additional traffic. If you haven't got the time or the sort of the wherewithal to spend time creating ads for every single product or service you're selling, this can help fill the gaps. Let's move on. Maybe more of you have used shopping campaigns and product listing ads. Now these again do feature a little bit in the exam. So some of the benefits of shopping campaigns, I have to say every time I've set them up they've been hugely beneficial. They seem to run on a lower cost per click than standard campaigns. They get more conversions. They just have worked for every client I've used them for really, really well, and I thoroughly recommend them if you haven't done it yet. The setting up can be awkward, but it's worth it in the long run. So some of the benefits that you can often get more traffic. You often get better qualified leads because with a shopping campaign, so what happens is you set up a feed from your site through Google Merchant Center to Google, and Google then you input all sorts of information such as the URL of the product image, the price of each product, and all sorts of attributes of that product, and Google then automatically creates an ad for any given product that someone searches for. So say for example it was lamps, which we're going to talk about next. Google will, if someone does a search for a particular type of lamp, Google will say, hey, they've got one of those lamps on their site, and then it will pull the picture from your site and the price and everything else. So someone who clicks on a shopping ad has seen an image of the product and they've seen the price of it, so that they're really well qualified. They know what they're getting and they've still clicked on the ad anyway, which means that they're highly likely to be interested in the product that advertiser is selling. It can give you a broader presence. It's got some different reporting and competitive data to other types of AdWords campaign. You get some other statistics that you don't get in regular search campaigns or display campaigns. So that can give you some quite useful competitive data. The ads can appear on Google Shopping in some countries, on Google Search, and on Google Search partner websites, including YouTube, for example. The cost, again, as with many other ads, is auction-based and is run on a cost-per-click basis. The next slide gives us an example of what shopping ads look like. So if you searched for lamps on Google, you might see an ad from Laura Ashley or from various other advertisers, Wayfair, Pookie Lighting, Furnish, and so on. Now these have been pulled through the Google Merchant Center from their site onto Google, and you can see that if somebody it's the only way of getting an image of your product that you're advertising to appear on regular Google search. So they're very powerful and they work really well. Each ad includes an image, title, price, and store or business name. And you don't have to create a unique ad for each product. So Google just automatically pulls those 4 criteria from your product feed and generates the ad, which has, you can see the image, the title, the price, and the name of the vendor. So let's talk next about ad extensions. If you've already done the AdWords fundamentals, you've probably gone through the ad extensions already, but let's have a quick refresher. So ad extensions give people more reasons to click on your ad. So they can improve your visibility of your ad because they literally extend the ad. They make them bigger. You know, if you've got a standard text ad, it might be that big. If you can get some site links or some mobile extensions or a location extension, your ad will literally take up more space. So it will be more visible. It will push down other advertisers, and your ad will be more likely to get clicked. They can often give you a better return on investment because you give people more options by having extensions. So if they get the option to see the location of your business and they see that you're nearby, again, they might just come to your store and buy something directly from you. If they're going to call you, again, you might get a better return on investment from that. If you're using site links, and which are lots of different links to subsections of your site, they're going to be able to take themselves to exactly the page that they want to be on, as opposed to going to the page that you think they want to be on, which might be the final URL of that ad in particular. But if you then give them extra options of where they might want to go on your site, they're more likely to find what they want faster, so they're more likely to turn into a customer. So how do they work? AdWords shows the extensions when they calculate the extension, when they believe that the extension will improve performance and the ad rank is high enough for it to appear. So Google, every time someone does a search, will find if an advertiser is eligible to show. If the ad's eligible to show, they'll then check, is that ad eligible to be shown with an ad extension? And you can have multiple ad extensions shown with any given ad. But for each auction, Google will decide which extension should be shown and should any be shown at all. So the costs, as with everything else, are done on a CPC basis, so you don't pay any extra to have them, except of course if you end up getting more clicks, where you may end up paying more overall, but hopefully that's because you're getting more high quality data and leads. Extension types, they do seem to update these a lot, but at the moment you get app extensions, call extensions, location extensions, review extensions, site link extensions, call out extensions, and previous visit extensions. So previous visits show people that they've been to this site before. It might be helpful for them to know that the site that they've been to the site before, and it might help them trust it a little bit more than perhaps they would if they thought it was a brand new site. Right, we're going to talk now about customizing ads with real-time updates and keyword insertion code. So keyword insertion code has been around forever, although it's not massively publicized by Google. However, the real-time updates is a pretty new feature, and it allows advertisers to add dynamic content to an ad, such as, say for example, someone's running a sale on their site, and they want to let people know that that sale is finishing in 5 days. They can update that information in their AdWords account, and then they'll put the end date of the sale, and then the ad will automatically count down. So when someone sees it today, it will say there's 5 days left. Sorry, there's 5 days left. Whereas in 4 days' time, it will say there's only 1 day left of this sale, and it will just do that automatically for you. Before, if you wanted to do that sort of thing, you had to spend a lot of time adding and customizing your ad copy. But now this will manage all of that for you. So ad customizers allow text ads to adapt based on the following criteria. So it can be search keywords, by user location, by device type, or by date, time, or day of week. Keyword insertion updates ads with keywords that cause them to show. So say, for example, we'll look at this one, chocolate. Say, for example, you wanted to create an ad that just said buy chocolate or buy chocolate, and if someone, your client was selling dark chocolate, milk chocolate, white chocolate, and you wanted your ad to reflect that, you could create 3 different ad groups, one for dark chocolate, so that keyword list would all be dark chocolate bar, dark chocolate, buy dark chocolate, dark chocolates, and then the ad would be all about dark chocolate, and then you'd have another ad group for milk chocolate, and again similarly a keyword list, milk chocolate bar, buy milk chocolate, buy milk chocolates, and then the ad matched to that would have ad copy saying that this advertiser sells milk chocolate. Or you can use dynamic keyword insertion, which is a way of adding, making your ad, so if someone searches for dark chocolate, your ad will automatically change and use the word dark chocolate in the headline or wherever you decide to put it. Or if they search for milk chocolate, your ad will update in order to show milk chocolate. If you haven't tried this out before, it's worth going and having a play around with it in an account if you can, because it can work really, really well, and it can save you quite a lot of time. There's always a bit of a, it's not perfect, and sometimes if someone searches for something, it can end up looking a bit weird. I remember back in the early days of Google, companies like eBay used to use it, and I remember eBay would just upload a list of keywords of every single different type of word that they could think of, every noun that they could think of. So you ended up with ads saying buy giraffes on eBay, even though it was unlikely no one was going to buy a live giraffe on eBay. So that was all down to keyword insertion. But it's something that's definitely can work really well. It can increase click-through rates very easily, and can be very very effective. The results on this slide were created by using the following insertion code. So you can see here that the way you write, you make dynamic keyword insertion happen is by just using the squiggly bracket. So if you wrote this headline, by squiggly bracket keyword colon chocolate, by default, if someone searched for one of your keywords, the headline that would show would be buy chocolate, because this word inside the squiggly bracket is your default ad copy, so that if Google can't for some reason insert a keyword in, it will just show this word that you've got in here. However, if you had a keyword, if you had a phrase in your keyword list, sorry, that was dark chocolate bar, and someone searched for dark chocolate bar, your ad could end up showing as buy dark chocolate. Or if someone searched for sugar-free chocolate, your ad might say buy sugar-free chocolate. You can see that this keyword has been automatically inserted into the ad. This one, gourmet chocolate truffles, because that keyword phrase is probably too long to fit in, Google has put in the default the default ad copy that we put in over here. So it just says buy chocolate, and that's the default ad copy that Google's going to use, because the phrase that the person searched for is too long to fit into the ad headline. One other thing to note is that the way you write the word keyword will determine how the capitalization works in the ad copy. So in this case, we've capitalized the K and the W of keyword, and that means that Google automatically will capitalize the first word of every word that gets inserted into the headline. If we did this all in lowercase, the entire headline, all the inserted words would be in lowercase. If we did it all if we just did the first letter, just the first word would be capitalized. If we just did the whole thing in caps, all these words would be in caps as well. Not to be recommended, because they'd probably be disapproved by Google, because that's not allowed. But you get the idea. Let's move on and talk about landing page experience. So the landing page Google worked out over the years is very important. If Google sends people to landing pages that aren't nice landing pages, they judge Google for that because Google hasn't sent them to a page that they were looking for. So Google's got an incentive to make sure that advertisers advertise pages and send people to landing pages that are high quality and are going to give the users what they're looking for. So as you'll all hopefully remember in quality score, landing page, oh my goodness, is sorry about that. Landing page is something that you really need to take. Landing page is something that's part of the quality score, and therefore will affect how much you're paying per click. Because if you've got a low landing page quality, you're going to end up paying more per click to be in a particular position. So if we're going to talk about understanding landing page experience, some of the Google's best practices are listed here. So provide relevant, useful, original content. So don't steal other people's content. Make sure it's relevant to what the person is likely to be searching for. Promote transparency and trustworthiness. So make sure you've got a privacy policy if you're collecting user information. Make it easy to navigate your site. So don't take people to a page from which they can't find any other parts of your site. Make sure there's a breadcrumb trail that they can get back to another category. It makes sense from a conversion point of view too. If you bring people to a landing page, say you're selling the digital cameras again, and you take people to a landing page where the cameras wasn't quite the right sort of camera that they were looking for, but there are people that are able to find easily from your website another page that is the right page, that you're much more likely to keep that user, and that click that you've paid for is more likely to have been worthwhile than if you just take people to a page from which their only option really is to go back out of the site again. Encourage customers to spend time there, to spend time on that page. Make sure that do remember that landing page experience impacts quality score and as a result the position of your ad. I've now got a sample question. So I don't know how many of you have done the exam before, but if you've done the exam before, you'll know that the questions come in a multiple choice format, and it might be something very similar to this. So which of the following is not a feature of a Google Shopping ad? We've got 4 options: the image of the product, the cost of the product, the quantity of product in stock, and the title of the product. So we've got the option of choosing one of those, and in the exam you will have to select one before you can move on to the next question. And in this case, the answer is the quantity of product in stock. That's not one of the things that's displayed in a shopping ad. All the other 3, you see the image, you see the cost, you see the title of the product, you don't see how much of the product is in stock. So the answer would be number 3. Do remember when you're taking the exam that Google does often phrase the questions in a negative way. Which of the following is not a feature? So as with all exams, do remember to read the questions very carefully before you answer them. So next we're going to talk about showing your ads and determining your bids. My next slide is a table about keyword matching options. Now, again, hopefully, if you've done a bit of AdWords advertising before, if you've been through the fundamentals exam, you should be fairly familiar with these match types, but we'll just refresh them in case anyone's not. So there are five different keyword matching options, and when you enter if you go through the interface and you're creating your ad for the first time and you enter a bunch of keywords, usually by default they will be broad match keywords. And what Google's worried about is that if you have to think of every single phrase that someone might search for that would be relevant to your ad, you might forget some, or you might, because people are going to have misspellings, they're going to put words in a strange order that you might not have thought of. And if they stuck to only showing your ad for exactly the phrases you had added, they might limit your traffic when there's no need to limit it. Now, once you've used this a bit, you'll know that yes, that's true, but often Google's ideas of what a relevant match for broad match is. The example I often use is a client of mine who was a building services provider, and they did a lot of gas testing and gas inspections. And the Google broad match, this is when I took over the account, what I found was that Google had been equating gas with the word petrol, because in the US, obviously, rather than talking about petrol, they talk about gas. So the ads have been showing on petrol station queries rather than on queries for people who needed the gas appliances tested. So if we you want to be very careful if you're going to use broad match to make sure that Google is actually finding the right queries for your ads to show on. So for example, the example in here is women's hats is the standard broad match keyword. You see it hasn't got any punctuation around it, and if you entered your keyword just like that, it would be in broad match. So this will allow Google to show your ads on misspellings, synonyms, related searches, and other relevant variations. So for example, buy ladies' hats might trigger your ad even though it wasn't one of your key phrases. So that's the most broad version. If you want to narrow it down a little, but you don't want to get too narrow, there's a fairly new version a fairly new addition to the matching options. Actually, it's been around for quite a long time, but it's been in beta forever, so it's not one of the options that shows up in the interface, but I find it really valuable, so it's worth thinking about. It's called Broad Match Modifier. And for this to work, you add a plus in front of any words in the phrase of your keyword phrase that you want to make sure are included, or a very close variation of them. So for example, in women's hats, they have to, for Google to show your ad, it has to include the word women's and the word hats. So for example, or a very close variation, but not synonyms. So ladies' hats, by ladies' hat wouldn't trigger the ad, but hats for women would trigger it because it contains this word hats, which has got a plus in front of it, and it contains the word women, which has got a plus in front of it. So that could trigger the ad. And I find I use this option quite a bit actually. The next most controlled of the keyword matching options is phrase match. So if you put the word women's hats inside inverted commas, that makes it a phrase match keyword, and that means that the person's phrase that they type into Google has to contain that phrase in that order. That phrase cannot be broken. So the option of buy women's hats would trigger your ad, but if someone searched for hats for women, it wouldn't, because you've broken that phrase. The most specific sort of keyword match type is using exact match. Now, I tend to use this more for clients who've got if they're in a very competitive industry and the auction price is very, very high. I would use exact match because any keywords where one of the clicks is not exactly what they're looking for could potentially cost the company quite a lot. So to make a keyword exact match, you put it inside square brackets. So for example, if you put women's hats inside square brackets, only that exact term will, and very close variations, so for example, plurals, will trigger the ad. So it would only be triggered by women's hats. Buy women's hats would not trigger that ad. And the last one, which I use in conjunction with all of these other ones, is negative match. So if you put a dash in front of a phrase or add keywords into the negative keyword section of your AdWords account in an ad group or a campaign level, it will not trigger your ad when that word is included. So if we added the word negative keyword women, your ad might show for baseball hats, but it wouldn't show for women's baseball hats because you would have women as a negative keyword, and you've told Google basically don't show my ad when the word women is included in the phrase that someone searched for. So I hope that clarifies it for anyone who wasn't clear about those to start with. We can talk next about language and geographic targeting. Now, this is something that you maybe set up when you're first setting up a campaign and don't refer back to all that often, but it's something that appears in the exam quite a bit. So do make sure you understand your language and location targeting settings. The language your customers are targeted in is based on their Google interface language settings. So if I've got my Google homepage set to English UK, that's the target language. That's the ads. I'm going to see ads that are targeted to the English language. If I've got my Google homepage set up in French, I'm going to see ads that are targeted to the language French. For location, it's based on where someone is based, or if someone shows an interest in that location. So it helps you. So say for example, I was targeting France. Google would look, if I was on my desktop, Google would look at my IP address and see am I based in France, in which case the ad might be relevant to show. If, however, I'm in the UK and I'm searching for things in France, Google might take that, by default, Google will take that as a signal that I was interested in things in France and therefore would show the ad. A few thoughts about bidding now. We're going to talk about bidding. There's quite a lot about bidding. It's probably worth, if you're not haven't used many of these bidding types, it's probably worth reading up on them before you sit the exam. So 3 different bidding options: CPC bidding, CPA bidding, and flexible bidding. CPC bidding drives traffic to your site, and you have maximum control over your bids. You can set your own bid amount or let AdWords automatically set bids to provide as many clicks as possible. You can determine your bid amount based on what you know about your business and value of a sale. For example, if you sell £5,000 diamond rings, one new customer is worth more than if you sell packets of sweets for 99 pence. Your ad position is obviously impacted by both your quality score and by your maximum cost per click. So you may frequently pay less than your maximum cost per click, as AdWords charges just enough to maintain a higher ranking than the rank held by the next highest bidder in the auction. That's something to bear in mind for the exam. So the way Google decides how much you'll pay is that you pay just enough to beat the person who's one ad below you. Having a higher maximum cost per click will cause your ads to show more often. CPA bidding is cost per acquisition bidding. It lets you decide the amount you're willing to pay for a conversion. One of the common mistakes people make is that they set their CPA bid too low. And so if your ad campaign's been running really well on a CPC basis, you then switch it to CPA bidding, and say, for example, your CPC bids were set at £1, you might decide to only go for a CPA bid of £2 or £3. Now that will, because Google has to adjust the clicks to reach that CPA target, Google might then start bidding at only 10 or 20 pence a click, so your ads are hardly going to show because they're going to be on page 2 or 3 or 4, if it's showing at all. So try not to make the mistake, if you switch to CPA bidding, of under bidding for the CPA. Bid for the cost per acquisition that's profitable for your client. And if it's still profitable, Google, and you set that amount, Google will then show your ads as often as it can, and it will try and get you sales at that price. And if it's a profitable price, then every click is worth it. So you've got to sort of be a bit forceful with yourself about bidding in a realistic way on CPA bidding. Flexible bidding allows you to easily apply automatically bid strategies across multiple campaigns, ad groups, or keywords. It includes targeted ad placement and return on advertising spend, which are 2 other types of bidding that targeted ad placement, which allows you to target a particular spot on the page, and return on advertising spend, which allows you to bid based on how much you want to get back for your advertising spend. A little bit more information about flexible bidding strategies. Enhanced CPC. So enhanced CPC bidding automatically adjusts manual CPC bids based on each click's likelihood to result in a conversion. So if you've got conversion tracking setting up, Google can look at that, see when people are likely to buy, and will bid up if they think someone's likely to buy, and will bid down if they think they're not. Targeted CPA bidding, we've talked about this, allows it to set bids to get as many conversions as possible to reach your average cost per acquisition goal. Maximizing clicks is an option which allows you to set bids to help get the most clicks within a target spend amount. Target search page location, as I was saying earlier, targets the top of the page or the first page position. You can't specify the ads position, but it allows you to have a bit more control over where your ads show. So if you've got any clients, I think we've probably all had them, who really want their ads to be at the top or in a particular, it allows you to have more control over that. Target return on ad spend automatically sets your bids to maximize your conversion value while trying to reach an average return on ad spend. The target outranking share automatically raises or lowers your bids to help outrank ads from another domain. So if you've got a really competitive client who really wants to beat a particular advertiser, you can use this sort of bidding to try and achieve that. Setting campaign budgets. Let's talk about this briefly. AdWords has got loads of different options that encourage you to maximize your budget. If you think about your daily budget as being your cost per click times the number of clicks per day, you need to have a little think about that when you're setting your budget to make sure that you're going to have enough budget. There's no point setting a maximum CPC of £1 and having a £1 daily budget. After 1 click, your budget's going to be used up, and that's going to be the end of it. Do remember that campaigns may cost more than your daily budget. So what AdWords does is it allows your ads to spend more than up to 20% more than your budget on any given day, but it will even it out over the course of a month. And that's another thing you might want to remember for the exam. But yes, and do remember, for any clients who get worried about this, you'll never be allowed to exceed your monthly budget, which is basically AdWords, your AdWords budget or your campaign budget multiplied by the number of days in the month. And if it does exceed that budget, you end up getting credits back at the end, which is always good news. Ad scheduling and rotation. For the exam, they don't go into much detail about this, but they do talk about it in general. So knowing that it exists is really useful. So you've got the option to set ads to show at particular times of day. You've also got the option to actually bid up or bid down at particular times of day. So you can say if between 9 AM and 11 AM is a peak time for your business, you can set the option to bid up on bid costs on clicks at that time of day, and perhaps bid down at other times of day when they're likely to be less profitable. The other thing you might get questions about in the exam is this ad rotation. So by default, Google rotates your ads until it works out which ones are doing best, and then it will start showing the one that's doing best more often. Some advertisers prefer to have, if they're doing different sorts of testing, might want them to rotate indefinitely, so they're always, if you've got 3 ads, they'll each be shown 33% of the time, and it's just another option for your campaign settings. A few management options. So AdWords URL, so your display URL is shown in your ad, typically includes your website subdomain, but the landing page URL is the specific area of the site that people will go to on a click. The tracking template is an optional feature that allows you to set parameters to provide deeper information. So the landing page URL has 2 options, two components: the tracking template, the final URL, which is required, and then a tracking template if you're using third-party tracking. You've got a few options for your different URLs for tracking, so you can use a custom parameter or a test button. There's a question, I think, in the exam about cross-account conversion tracking. So if you haven't used that before, again, probably worth having a quick look at. What you need to know is that it allows you to track conversions among hundreds of accounts with a single tag. So if you've got one client who's having to use lots of AdWords accounts, 2 or 3 or 5, or 10 or 100, you can use one piece of conversion tracking code, so you don't have to implement lots across all the different accounts. Remarketing, again, the exam touches on this. It allows you to customize campaigns for those who have already visited your site. You could bid on more general keywords to increase visibility to these customers who've been interested before, for example, and you can optimize bids on existing keywords, such as increasing bids for 20 by 25% for those on the site who came to the site in the last 30 days. If you're managing large accounts, there are a few different options that you might be interested in about how to manage large campaigns with automated rules and bulk changes. So maybe some of you have already come across AdWords Editor, which is the offline tool that allows people to find and replace keywords across accounts. It just makes managing an AdWords account so much easier. I would really recommend, if you're getting into AdWords in any sort of way, that you have a look at this if you haven't already. AdWords scripts let you make automated changes in accounts using JavaScript code to change bids, pause ad groups, and add keywords. Scripts are really effective if you manage large campaigns. And then AdWords, the AdWords API, the application programming interface, lets developers build applications that interact directly with the Google AdWords server. So essentially, rather than having to go in through the interface, say for example you're a large agency and you're managing campaigns across all the different marketing channels, AdWords, Bing, and so on, you have the option of, you might build your own management dashboard, which would allow you to change bids on AdWords and Microsoft Ad Center at the same time, and you can do that using the AdWords API. A few other AdWords account optimization tools. So the keyword planner, there's quite a few questions about that in the exam too. It allows you to research keywords based on relevant terms and products. Have a go and have a play with it. It's in all the accounts under the tools section, so it's a good thing to have a look at, and get forecasts to predict how a list of keywords may perform for a given budget. Whether you like the forecasts or not, this is the tool that Google recommends. You get the option of using the AdWords bid simulator. So there are lots of different AdWords bid simulators. There's regular, campaign, shopping, target, and mobile bid simulators. The opportunities tab is also something to think about, that you have opportunities. Google will give you keyword opportunities and say perhaps you might want to add this keyword to your campaign. It'll give you suggestions on bids and budgets, give you suggested ad extensions if you're not using them. It will perhaps even give you suggestions for account structure, so saying why don't you add a new ad group or create this campaign. And it will also give you suggestions for settings. Here's another sample question just to finish up this section. So your client is a ski operator in France who wishes to target the UK market. Which campaign settings should they use? So should they location target France and language target all languages? Should they target the UK and location targeting and English as the language? Should they location target all countries and create ads in French? Or should they location target the UK and set French as the language target? Hopefully you'll remember from the earlier session that the answer probably is to target the UK in location targeting, so you want people in the UK, and set English as the language because you're looking for people in the UK to come to France and do the holiday. So if you're running an English-based ski school, that would be the language you want people to be speaking. Lastly, we're going to talk about measuring performance and optimizing your accounts. So measuring your search network campaign. The new reports editor makes all of this very easy. You get a simple drag and drop interface in the reports tab. You can do multi-segment analysis, custom charts, advanced filtering. You also get all the general statistics of clicks, impressions, click-through rate, and so on. Do remember about the columns. You've got the option of lots of different columns, and enabling more than the standard ones is always a good idea to get more in-depth analysis. For monitoring the search network, segments allow you to view performance data. So if you use the segments button in your account, it allows you to see, do you see this button here, the network? It will allow you to see different options, how different parts of the network have performed. So you can compare, and you can also compare paid and organic. Auction Insights allows you to compare yourself to your competitors. Attribution reports reveal the paths your customers take. So an attribution report, for example, could say, actually, for a particular sale, the first click came from AdWords, the second click came organically, and the third click was back from AdWords again. And it helps you to work out the true value of AdWords. View through conversion data tracks the value of your display network ads. Again, there's a question about this in the exam, I think, where a view through conversion is for someone who's seen your ad on the display network, they haven't clicked on it, but they've later come back and bought something, likely based on the fact that they saw this ad on the first time. So it allows you to add more value to the display ad that person saw. Optimizing your search network campaign. So you've done some analysis, now you want to optimize it. Creating great ads is obviously something that's very important. Aligning your keywords with your business goals. Bid like a pro, as we've been talking about, and experiment with your campaigns. So tying your keywords back to your ad creatives. Write some simple, compelling copy, highlighting unique selling points. Use ad extensions to lift click-through rate to improve relevance. A big one is testing and improving your ads, your creatives. You can use the AdWords experiment tool to do that, where you try out 2 different variations of an ad, and it will tell you which one's doing better. Always, if you can, put the focus on customers. The more you do that, the better you'll end up doing. We're coming to the end now, and the last thing I wanted to finish off with just a few tips about taking the exam. I imagine many of you have taken the exam already, or taken one of the exams already. It's very similar to the others in the format, although there are a lot of questions. There's 100 questions to answer, and you've only got 120 minutes to answer them, so you've got to rattle through them quite quickly. You need 80% to pass, and it's valid for 12 months. The Google Partners Help Center has been, the Google Partners resources page has been updated recently, and is really helpful. And do remember, you can have it, it's an open book exam, so you can have that open while you're taking the exam and refer back to it if you need to. Review the AdWords Help Center for detailed information. I always try and have an AdWords account open at the same time too, because if you need to remember where a particular product is it in the Tools tab or is it somewhere else, you can just go and check quite quickly, so that's quite handy. The Search Study Guide, I would really recommend it. It breaks down all this information into modules and allows you to go through and digest it. Remember, in order to become certified, you must pass the fundamentals exam and